Yeah, first and foremost, thank you everyone for dialing into today's webinar, focusing on solving wicked problems with life cycle assessment. We're joined by Fortescue today, so really looking forward to being able to discuss this project and how we supported with a life cycle assessment for Fortescue. Yeah, I'm Emily, and I'll be hosting, emceeing, whatever you like, the webinar today. So yeah, really looking forward to presenting Nicole and Ilka to you today. Before we introduce you to the speakers, we've got a very quick poll that I want to share with you all today. This poll is just a single question and it's trying to understand what LCA means for you and how you would find that useful for your business. So I will share that with you all now. You should see it pop up on your screen in just a moment. Okay, so that's just launched now. The question is, what opportunities are you hoping to unlock with a life cycle assessment? We usually keep these more close-ended, but we thought we'd give it a try and keep it a bit more open. So, yeah, if anyone's keen and feeling brave to pop in a short answer or a word, something that you might experience or you might think that other people would get an LCA for, feel free to get creative and pop them in there. Cool. We've got one answer so far. We've got a few more joining too. I'll just give that another few minutes there. We haven't done this before. I can't see the answers as they come in, but hopefully when I close the poll, we'll be able to see them. I'll just give that maybe another couple, like 10, 15 seconds just to get a few more answers in. Sweet. All right, I'll wrap it up there. Thank you. We got quite a few responses, so that's really good. If I hit end poll, will it show me? Maybe. Oh, it's opening them up. Let's see if we can get some answers showing up for people. That would be really fantastic. It's not quite working. But that's okay. You've got to try these things out sometime. So maybe we can summarize them and send them out in our follow-ups afterwards. Then we can better understand what people are looking for in an LCA. So there you go. And hopefully that's gotten your brains fired up and ready to absorb some wisdom from LCA. I will move on to our speakers. We've got Nicole, who's Impact Director at thinkstep-anz, and we've got Ilka, who's the Green Certification Manager at Fortescue. I'll pass on to Ilka first to get her to talk about the project that was done between ThinkStep and Fortescue, what the learnings for that were, and how that LCA is now being used within the business. So, Ilka, I will let you steal my screen share and yeah, take it away.
Thanks for that, and thank you for the wonderful welcome. I will just share my screen, and I'd like to start with a quick acknowledgement to country. Of country, my apologies. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. I will also extend this respect to other Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders who are present. So on to Fortescue. For those of you who haven't been introduced to Fortescue, we are one of the largest iron ore producers globally, and our Pilbara operations are at the heart of that. We operate 3 hematite mines and the Iron Bridge magnetite mine, so 5 mines in total, which are connected by 760 kilometres of rail, a 100-kilometre slurry pipeline, and a complex high-throughput port system where we ship a range of blended and standalone products. In FY25, we delivered 198.4 million tonnes of iron ore, and we have a long history of pushing our operations to deliver incremental gains year after year. But Fortescue is no longer just an iron ore miner. We're transforming into a global green energy and technology company, and that transformation requires new skills, new tools, and new ways of thinking. And LCA is just one of those new tools. Across our operations, we emit more than 2.5 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent each year, and we're committed to not just reducing that, but to achieving real zero rather than net zero by 2030. So that means for us eliminating fossil fuels entirely and not relying on any offsets. But our operational emissions are only a small part of this picture. Our Scope 3 emissions reach 260 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent a year, with 93% or 98% of that coming from our downstream steelmaking. So whereas we're part of a sector with enormous global emissions impacts, which is why our decarbonisation efforts and how we make our decisions really matters. So in terms of our decarbonisation progress, we're making significant progress on the ground. We have electric heavy mining equipment being deployed into our Pilbara operations. We've built over 460 kilometres of high voltage transmission lines to support our large-scale renewables. A 100 megawatt solar farm at Ironbridge is now operational and meeting around a quarter of that site's electricity needs. And the construction of our 190 megawatt solar farm at Cloudbreak is well underway. But with all this new technology comes new risks, particularly the risk of unintended consequences in the environmental impacts. So as we eliminate fossil fuels, new trade-offs emerge. And this is where LCA has become important for us. It's helped us identify hotspots, make trade-offs visible, avoid shifting emissions, and provided a transparent and consistent way to compare our options. So today, I just wanted to share how we've built this capability from almost nothing and why surrounding ourselves with experts, taking small wins, and asking for help with humility have been essential in our journey. So when I started in 2020 in the energy part of Fortescue, LCAs were something that really lived within the academic realm. There was no internal capability, no tools, no standards. But there were incredibly talented people who were immediately understood the value of this, that this skill set could bring. So expectations in terms of delivery were really high from day one. At the time, the world was debating what emissions threshold hydrogen should meet for it to be considered green. And then suddenly all of our project teams were turning to us, which was essentially a one-person team at the time, looking for answers. There wasn't really an option for us to fail to provide these answers, and definitely no option for us to get those answers wrong. So the approach was simple: build fast, but build well, prioritise credibility, and keep the business engaged from the start. And humility, which is one of Fortescue's values, was essential in this. Getting it right from the beginning meant reaching out to experts early and often. So how we came about to build that capability quickly. Our success really came from deliberately building around people, partnership, and value. First, we surrounded ourselves with experts. Externally, that meant working with experienced LCA practitioners who could help us shape our philosophy, governance, and methods, and also trained our team. Internally, it really meant partnering with anyone who had deep specialist knowledge: conveyor belt monitoring teams, metallurgists, renewable engineers, electrolyzer scientists. We were incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by experts in their fields who were willing to share their knowledge. Their expertise fast-tracked our capability, validated our thinking, and more importantly, built us some credibility. As I've mentioned, Fortescue has a value of humility, and that was one that we really had to lean heavily on during this time. We recognised what we didn't know and asked for help in a way that felt almost constant for a while there. Secondly, we were relentlessly consistent. It was the same language, the same methods, and the same quality. Consistency created reliability and confidence in the results of our work. We built templates early so that the business saw high quality, repeatable outputs from the beginning. And thirdly, we demonstrated business value really quickly. We focused on LCAs that supported Fortescue's growth strategy, and we adapted quickly as the business evolved. Flexibility was a big part of our value. We found natural allies across our engineering, decarb, procurement, operations, and our R&D teams. These were teams who were already really motivated by evidence and optimization. So these allies helped us create pull rather than push for an LCA within the business. We built credibility through small, practical wins rather than those big theoretical reports that looked really, really good on the shelves but were quickly forgotten. Delivering meaningful work for the people who supported us was really crucial. And once that trust was built, demand grew organically. And as any LCA practitioner tells me, good data is really the hardest part of an LCA. So having these strong relationships across the organisation meant that we had the access to the information we needed, and it made us far more effective. So today, LCA is one of several inputs that support decision-making at Fortescue. It informs our decisions, it doesn't dictate them. What LCA brings is clarity, consistency, and evidence. It helps us identify our hotspots, avoid unintended consequences, and compare our decarbonisation pathways. It now supports key elements of the climate transition plan by providing transparent assessments of new technologies, such as green iron, our HME electrification, and our hydrogen systems. It helps our teams prioritise decarbonisation investments, and it surfaces sustainability trade-offs really early in our engineering and procurement decisions, and also supports our government consultations with robust technical insights grounded in systemic analysis. So LCA is helping us navigate complexity with more confidence without becoming the sole decision driver. And our lessons learned. So looking back, we've learned a few really, really important lessons. Consistency has always beaten complexity for us. It builds trust, and hopefully a lot quicker than if we had gone down a different pathway. Timing really matters. Being present when decisions are being made is where the value really is. Credibility builds influence, especially in the technical forums that we largely tried to be a part of. Our natural allies accelerated our adoption. Culture shifts faster through relationships rather than mandates. Small wins create momentum, and momentum opened doors for us. And asking for help, that real lean into the humility value, was a real strength for us. It accelerated our capability and helped build a community. So looking ahead, we're delivering LCAs as our products and technologies mature. We're increasing alignment with external standards and customer expectations. We're continuing our structured mentoring and upskilling within the team. And we're also now working closely with our sustainable supply chain team to help our key suppliers understand what an LCA is and how that supports our upstream Scope 3 journey. So we've come a long way in 4 or 5 years, but there's still plenty to do. And now I'd like to hand over to one of those experts who has been part of Fortescue's LCA journey since almost day one.
Thanks, Ilka. Only one of a team that have been working with the Fortescue team, but very proud of the partnership that we've developed. What I want to do now is talk briefly about LCA and how we move from the basics to impact, which is what we did with Fortescue. Before I jump onto that, I just wanted to point out this lighthouse image. I will come back to it, but I just wanted to point out a lighthouse only works if the light's actually turned on. And likewise, LCA will only have impact if we illuminate our results with meaning. I'm going to start with a bit of a question for you, a bit of a brain teaser. What does the sound of music have in common with LCA? That's quite a bizarre question, so I won't make you think very long. It's the first words of the song Do Re Mi. I'll spare you the singing, but it says, let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. And Ilka's slide showed that they started with quite a low understanding of LCA to start with. And so when we started working with them, we worked from a principles level, making sure that everything was grounded in the standards for compliant LCA. So we started with the 4 steps of LCA, which come out of the international standards. So the first is goal and scope definition, then life cycle inventory, life cycle impact assessment, and finally, interpretation of results. Now, in this diagram, you can see lots of arrows going everywhere, and that's actually critical because all of the stages of LCA are linked. But at the center of this diagram, at the very heart, is interpretation of results. And that's because it's critical to everything. When we return to our lighthouse image, using the interpretation phase is like turning the lamp on for a lighthouse. We might have a pretty report with lots of numbers, but it means nothing without interpretation applied all the way through the study and guiding our every step. We also talked about, particularly when they're working in the built environment with iron ore, the modular structure that the European standard EN 15804 for products brings, and particularly, the iron ore mining is sitting way back in that raw materials A1 stage. But we also expanded our view really broadly, and we wanted to make sure that we understood the big picture as well as the minute detail. And so looking at the whole value chain and understanding that nothing happens in isolation, and we need to not only think about the supply chain, but whole of life and actually all of those other things that sit around it. So where we started was actually to develop 10 key focus areas for LCA in Fortescue. And so I'm just going to quickly go through the 10 principles that we used. You'll see a little diagram, which is a miniature version of that 4 steps of LCA. And the green highlighted bit is the part of those 4 stages that each principle is related to. So the first one was strategic decisions based on systems thinking. So we don't want to do temporary fixes, but effective solutions, and making sure that we understand functional systems. Starting early and refining continuously. A lot of LCA people, including us at times, can get a little bit hung up on perfection. But really, agility trumps perfection if you want an impactful LCA. Change then supports making improvement. We can start early and then refine rather than waiting for the perfect data. And most importantly, it then informs our decision making the whole way through. We focus on carbon and manage trade-offs. So Fortescue's initial focus was climate action, and we saw some of that in Ilka's presentation. But really where LCA is helping is by bringing that credibility, as she mentioned, but also by doing holistic LCA, it's still really important to have an awareness of trade-offs when you're making decisions. A clear, consistent and comparable functional unit. So your functional unit is kind of your unit of measurement within the LCA. So we want to make sure that what we're measuring is meaningful and fair, that it's informing our understanding of impacts between different options that we might compare. And it does support comparing different technologies at a large scale. But within those comparisons, the system boundaries are a central issue. LCA within large business systems, comparing often quite different options means that we need to really consider what is the system boundary that we're dealing with. And we need those to be broad boundaries to enable complex decisions. Ilka mentioned data, better decisions. We need to make sure we've got good data, which means we can understand our hotspots and understand the high impact areas that we need to work on most. And it helps us to make better decisions for emissions reduction. The 7th was a scientific approach with expert opinion. So LCA is science-based, and it's a focus on the science with honesty and integrity, but also making sure that we understand what those results mean with interpretation. With both sustainability and feasibility, it's about finding that sweet spot to support business success and being practical. LCA that sits on a shelf is not useful. How can we deliver the most practical solutions to support decarbonisation? And the last 2, ethics and integrity in LCA. So making sure that LCA comes from a values-driven basis, which is part of the DNA of Fortescue, and making sure that it's compliant with both regulations and standards. And lastly, making credible claims and having a solid reputation. This is critical, but also confidential work. They're doing a lot of groundbreaking work at Fortescue, and so they have a need to make sure that they protect their confidential information, but balance that with transparency and building trust, with being able to help to explain and justify their results. So to conclude, there were 10 principles for LCA that we developed in partnership with Fortescue. They respond to the requirements of the LCA standards and good practice, and they also respond to the needs of their business and are expressed in language that is understood across the business. But we must return to our lighthouse. LCA without meaning is like a lighthouse with its lamp turned off. Our LCA will smash on the rocks of obscurity unless we turn on the lamp of interpretation and make sure that in the end, it has a message for business that is understood and meaningful. If that message is understood, then it can help to direct our business ships in a new and better direction. And with that, it's back to Em.
Amazing lighthouse analogy there. Thank you, Nicole. Fantastic, and great to hear from you as well, Ilka, to really talk about how LCA has supported Fortescue and what that journey really looked like for both parties and all your other allies, as you've called them. So that's really fantastic. We are at the Q&A part of the webinar now. It doesn't seem like we've got any questions that have come through quite yet. So yeah, please post some in the chat and I can address them to our wonderful speakers. Don't miss out on this opportunity to really ask anything about LCA and about this process. So I suppose it might be good to kind of learn a little bit more, Ilka, from your side. Obviously, doing a life cycle assessment of that scale. We've done quite a few life cycle assessments at ThinkStep for like smaller products and things, but to do something that big scale is, I think, quite a fascinating thing with a lot of different layers in there, as I'm sure you've already spoken about. I suppose, would you have any? You've already had your lessons learnt in there, but would you have any piece of advice in particular that you think you would give to people who want to do such a big LCA?
It's an acceptance that you know incredibly little compared to the experts in the room. It's enjoying that process and really leaning into the learning of it and the excitement of the new results that you can have. If you don't enjoy that piece of it, it makes the slog of tracking down the data that you need really, really difficult. So that's what my advice would be.
Yeah, so just staying positive basically and being, I think that's a really nice way to look at LCA because it's insights that you wouldn't otherwise get, really, right? So you learn a whole new side of your business. So that's actually quite a fun thing.
And I would also say choosing your external consultants. Obviously, ThinkStep has been a fantastic partner for us, but it's largely due to the way that we've worked together. So those relationships have been a key component of the success as well. So choose well, choose once, choose well would be my suggestion there.
Choose once, choose well. It's a good one. I think you can apply that to a lot of things in life too. We've got some questions coming through now. So I'll read this first one's from Matt. So talking about functional units and system boundaries, what has your approach been to begin to understand downstream impacts with a focus on steel as well? And how does the modeling for crude or liquid steel production work? So I'm not sure if that's something that we can get into more detail here. Or if that's part of the bigger LCA. I might open that maybe to Nicole, if you're happy to speak to a bit more of that.
My mute button wasn't working. Yeah. I mean, from a general perspective, there's a lot of work that's happening on modelling of steel production. I actually came from the steel industry, so I did the original LCA that BlueScope did for their EPDs, which were released back in 2015. That was my one big flash in the pan LCA. It's one of the biggest LCAs known to man. And then I went, I've had enough. But yeah, there's a lot of work and that is continuing to evolve. Likewise, companies like InfraBuild are doing a lot of work on EAF-driven steel production as well. And yeah, a number of companies, both sides of the Tasman and internationally as well. Ilka, I'm not sure if Fortescue have delved into Scope 3 type LCA at this stage.
Yep. So we have a green iron project which plays really nicely into our downstream Scope 3 impacts. So we've got a couple of technologies that we're exploring. One which is about to be operational at Christmas Creek. So we will have actual data rather than modelled data for our green iron LCA.
Awesome.
And then how that plays into our future customers' steel value chains as well.
Yeah, perfect. So it seems like steel production's all covered in there. So it's all good. I have another question, which might be more of a generalized question, and it's, did you use a consultant for your LCA or your own software? Well, I suppose you used us. I don't know if there was any software in the background that was used. I'm sure we used software for modeling the LCA. Not sure if you want to go into any more detail, either Ilka or Nicole.
Yeah, so we obviously worked with ThinkStep, but we have Gabby in-house. We are exploring lots of different options as technology changes. AI is obviously a huge driver at the moment in terms of efficiencies. So how we can integrate that in to do better data gathering is also a consideration, but currently just Gabby for us.
Yeah, and the process was that we kind of walked beside your team to start with, really helping to learn how to use it. So it was a bit of a, watch me do it, we watch you do it, now go do it on your own type idea. Yeah, was it probably fortnightly we would have had meetings, Ilka? Another member of our team did it.
With the second most complicated LCA, Nicole we decided to start with because we love a good challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think it's a real challenge to get to be really good at LCA quickly. And Fortescue have done a great job of building a team to be able to do that in-house. And so we just sort of walked alongside where needed and we're here for when they need, and mostly they don't need any more, to be honest.
We do have a follow-up question actually from Matt about steel. So he's just wondering how that boundary definition, I think, between Fortescue and like steel that's made overseas and how that impacts the transport emissions associated to ship the iron, from China, say, to Pilbara or wherever. Yeah, not sure if you're happy to talk to that, Ilka.
Yeah, so we do model the whole value chain. Fortescue has 8 VLOCs of our own, so some of that actually falls into our Scope 1 emissions, and then the rest of our iron ore is transported via Scope 3, our Scope 3 emissions, and we've also got a green shipping team, so I would be remiss to not be including the opportunities that program of work can play. So we model the whole thing and then cut the boundaries as required, depending on the question that we're answering, is the other really important piece of this.
And if you're looking at the impacts of the iron, for example, if you had an environmental product declaration or something like that, it has to count everything from the cradle, from literally rock in the ground, including those impacts. So any iron distributor would have to have all of those impacts included.
Perfect. I think that's a good answer to wrap everything up. So I think that brings us to the end.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah. Please do.
Ilka, if you could just sort of drill it down to one thing, what do you think the greatest benefit to the business has been with engaging with LCA?
Asking better questions of our business. It's been a real learning experience for us, but having a business that can ask itself better questions as it makes decisions has been a hugely beneficial piece of this, I think.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. An even better question to end it on. Thank you. That's good. Awesome. Great. Well, I'll just bring the slides back for a little bit there. Cool. Yeah, once again, thank you so much, Ilka and Nicole, for presenting to us about the LCA done for Fortescue. I'm sure we all learnt a lot about it. And if we reflect on maybe the answers that we did the poll at the start, maybe that can kind of help us see how an LCA can bring those to reality. So thank you very much for your time. Before we wrap up, just a few things that are coming up on the ThinkStep side. So there'll be a few of us at Transform, Green Building Council of Australia conference in Sydney. So if you're around, Nicole, I assume that you'll be attending, but if not Nicole, others will be.
Yeah, so I'll be there, and also our CEO, Barbara. And for people who want to know more about how to use LCA effectively, we're running an applied LCA course hopefully within that week as well. So reach out if you're interested in finding out more about that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we've done the applied LCA course 1 or 2 times before, and yeah, great success. So yeah, if you're keen to come along to that around Transform, definitely reach out to Nicole or myself. We've also got a masterclass, which is also hosted by Nicole and also Eula, who's on our communications team, about how to steer clear of greenwashing. So whether you've got an LCA or not, whether you've done other sustainability efforts within your organisation, how can you be equipped to speak about them confidently and credibly? You can join that greenwashing masterclass to find out more. And we also have a disclosure kit, which is in the process of being released into the world. And so this will help you to disclose and prepare for reporting. So we're really excited about that. That's up and coming, but there's some more information on our website if you're looking at doing your climate-related disclosure reporting soon. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
We have many more webinar replays on a whole host of sustainability topics. You can check them out on our website and our YouTube channel.